Electric charges and field. This is the first chapter of NCERT of physics of class 12. This chapter I have divided in 4 parts. In part 1, we'll study about frictional electricity, properties of charges, Coulomb's law. Then we'll discuss the Coulomb's law in vector form and the superposition principle. Okay, so this is the first part. There are total 4 parts. So there will be 4 videos of this chapter. So we'll start with frictional electricity, the first topic. Okay, now whenever two insulating bodies are rubbed against each other, some of the charges are transferred from one body to the other, and as we know that there are only two kinds of charges, positive and negative charges. Now, which type of charges can be transferred? Only the electrons which are in the outermost shell, which are called as the valence electrons. So, these electrons are transferred from one body to the other, the body in which the electrons are loosely bound. From that body, the electrons are transferred to the other body. So, whenever two insulating bodies are rubbed against each other, the body which gains electrons, that becomes negatively charged, and the body which loses electrons becomes positively charged. So both the bodies get oppositely charged. As these are the insulating bodies, the charges remain at rest on these bodies, and such type of charges we call it as static charges. And this type of electricity which is produced is called as the static electricity, or we may also call it as the frictional electricity. Why? Because this electricity is produced due to friction. So such type of electricity developed is called as the frictional electricity or the static electricity. And this branch of physics, which deals with the study about the charges at rest or the static charges, is called as electrostatics. So the first two chapters are based on electrostatics. This first chapter is electric charges and field, and the second chapter is electrostatic potential and capacitance. Okay, now let's continue. The charges are of two types, positive and the negative charges. Okay, now a positively charged body, it means it is in deficit of electrons. As we have already discussed, when two insulating bodies are rubbed, some of the electrons are transferred from one body to the other. So the body which loses electrons, which is in deficit of electrons, that body becomes positively charged. So positively charged body means it is due to the removal of electrons from a neutral body. Whereas a negatively charged body means it is in excess of electrons. So it is produced by giving the electrons to a neutral body. And the SI unit of charge is Coulomb, and its dimensional formula is T into A, because we know that the formula for the charge Q is equal to I into T, I ampere, and T is the time. So its dimensional formula is T into A. Let's take one example. When a glass rod is rubbed with a silk cloth, when a glass rod is rubbed with a silk cloth, some of the charges are transferred from glass rod to the silk cloth. The electrons are transferred from glass rod to the silk cloth. So the silk cloth has got excess of electrons, it becomes negatively charged, whereas the glass rod acquires an equal amount of positive charge. So the glass rod becomes positively charged and the silk acquires an equal amount of negative charge. Okay, thus charging is due to the actual transfer of the electrons. A positively charged body loses some electrons and hence its mass also reduces slightly. Whereas a negatively charged body, it gains some electrons and its mass also increases slightly. The mass of one electron is 9.1 into 10 raised to the power minus 31 kg. So slightly the mass increases, the body which is negatively charged, and the body which is positively charged, its mass also reduces slightly. Let's take few more examples. When an ebonite rod is rubbed with fur, some of the electrons are transferred from fur to the ebonite rod. So the ebonite rod becomes negatively charged and the fur becomes positively charged. The same way, woolen coat rubbed with a plastic sheet, woolen coat acquires positive charge and the plastic sheet acquires an equal amount of negative charge. Woolen carpet rubbed with the rubber shoes, woolen carpet gets an gets a positive charge, whereas the rubber shoes gets an equal amount of negative charge. The same way, when the dry hair is rubbed with a plastic comb, some of the electrons are transferred from the dry hair to the comb. So the dry hair becomes positively charged and the plastic comb becomes negatively charged. Now let's discuss few properties of charges. These are very, very important. The first property is conservation of charge. For an isolated system, the summation of Q is equal to 0, which means that the charge can neither be created nor it can be destroyed, only it can be transferred from one body to the other. Let's take the example of glass rod and silk cloth. Before rubbing, both are neutral. After rubbing, the glass rod gets positive charge and the silk cloth gets an equal amount of negative charge. So the total charge on this system is constant. Okay, so this property we call it as conservation of charge. The second property is quantization of charge, which states that the total charge on a body is integral multiple of basic unit of charge. That is integer multiplied by the basic unit of charge. And the basic unit of charge is taken as the charge on an electron or a proton. The charge on the electron is written as minus E, whereas on proton is written as plus E. So mathematically, the quantization of charge can be written as the charge on any body Q is equal to plus minus N into E, where N is an integer and E is the basic unit of charge and its value is 1.6 into 10 raised to the power minus 19 coulomb. This property we call it as quantization of charge. Q is equal to plus minus Ne. And this was first demonstrated by Millikan's oil drop experiment. Suppose a body contains N1 number of electrons and N2 number of protons. Then the total charge on the body will be equal to N2 into E minus N1 into E. The next property is additive property. As charge is a scalar quantity, so the total charge on any system is equal to the sum of the charges on individual bodies. That is, no direction is considered over here. It is added or subtracted by simple algebraic operations. Suppose a system contains 4 charges Q1, minus Q2, minus Q3 and plus Q4. So then the total charge will be equal to just the algebraic sum or subtraction, that is Q1 minus Q2 minus Q3 plus Q4. So this property we call it as the additive property. It is added or subtracted by simple algebraic operations. The next property is like charges repel each other, whereas the unlike charges attract each other. Now like charges here means similar charges, positive charges brought close to each other, they repel each other, whereas a positively charged rod brought close to a negatively charged rod, they will attract each other. So these are the properties of charges: conservation of charge, quantization of charge, the additive property, and the like charges repel, whereas the unlike charges attract each other. Now next is the methods of charging a body. There are two methods for charging a neutral body, that is charging any uncharged body. The first method is charging by conduction. In this method, the uncharged body is brought in contact with the charged body. The uncharged body is brought in contact with the charged body and the charges are shared. So the uncharged body gets the same kind of charge. Suppose a charged body is having a charge Q and it is brought in contact with any uncharged body. Now both these bodies will get Q by 2 and Q by 2 charge. The next method is charging by induction. In this method, the charged body is brought near the uncharged body, not in contact with it. It is brought just close to the uncharged body, and the uncharged body gets opposite kind of charge. So this method is charging by induction. So there are two methods of charging a body, conduction method and the second one is induction. In conduction method, the charged body is brought in contact with the uncharged body, whereas in induction, the charged body is brought close to the uncharged body. In conduction, the charged body gets the same kind of charge, the uncharged body gets the same kind of charge as the charged body, whereas in induction, the uncharged body gets opposite kind of charge. Now next is a very important law, which is Coulomb's law. This states that the force of attraction or repulsion between any 2-point charges is directly proportional to the product of charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. And the direction of this force acts along the line joining the two charges. Suppose there are two charges Q1 and Q2 separated by r distance. There will be force of attraction or repulsion between them depending upon the nature of the charges. And this force is directly proportional to the product of charges, that is Q1 into Q2, and is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. That is, F is proportional to 1 upon R square. Combining these two, we get F is proportional to Q1 into Q2 upon R square. Equating it, whenever we remove the proportionality sign and equate it, a constant of proportionality comes. Here the constant of proportionality is written as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. So the Coulomb's law becomes 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon R square. Now let's discuss this constant of proportionality. The constant of proportionality is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught. This epsilon naught is called as the permittivity of the free space. That is how much electric field lines it is permitting, and the charges are placed in the free space. So the Coulomb's law in mathematical form can be written as F is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon R square. And this epsilon naught is called as the permittivity of free space, that is vacuum. That is, the charges are placed in vacuum, or you may consider the charges are placed in air. And the value of this constant of proportionality, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, is 9 into 10 raised to the power 9 in SI units. Now what will be its SI unit? 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught is equal to F into R square upon Q1 into Q2. So its unit will be Newton into meter square upon Coulomb into Coulomb, Coulomb square. Newton meter square per Coulomb square. So the value of 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught is 9 into 10 raised to the power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. From here, you can calculate the value of epsilon naught. Epsilon naught will be equal to 1 upon 4 pi into 9 into 10 raised to the power 9. When calculated, it comes out to be 8.854 into 10 raised to the power minus 12. And the unit will be inverse of this. That is Coulomb square Newton raised to the power minus 1 meter raised to the power minus 2. So this law is called as the Coulomb's law. But if the charges are placed in some dielectric medium, like insulating medium, like water is an insulator. So when the charges are placed in some medium whose permittivity is epsilon, then the force between the charges which are placed in a dielectric medium, then the force becomes 1 upon 4 pi epsilon Q1 into Q2 upon R square. And this permittivity of the medium is related to the permittivity of the free space by the formula epsilon. The permittivity of the medium is equal to K into epsilon naught. This K here is called as the dielectric constant. There is a constant value for a particular medium, like for water, its value is 80. So when the charges are placed in some dielectric or the insulating medium, then the force becomes 1 upon 4 pi epsilon Q1 into Q2 upon R square, which can be written as 1 upon 4 pi K into epsilon naught into Q1 into Q2 upon R square. So K is the dielectric constant, which is equal to epsilon upon epsilon naught. Permittivity of the medium to the permittivity of free space, which is also called as the relative permittivity. So the relative permittivity is the dielectric constant only. So the relative permittivity is given by permittivity of the medium to the permittivity of free space, which is the dielectric constant. And in terms of force, it is equal to the ratio of the force when the charges are placed in air or in vacuum to the force when the charges are placed in the medium. This is the force when the charges are placed in vacuum or in air, and this is the force when the charges are placed in medium. Dividing these two equations, we get K is equal to the force between the charges when placed in air to the force between the charges when placed in medium. So the relative permittivity or the dielectric constant is epsilon upon epsilon naught, or the force in air to force in medium. There is no unit of epsilon or K. It is unitless, it is dimensionless. So the dielectric constant is unitless. Now let's discuss the Coulomb's law in vector form. If the product of the two charges is greater than 0, greater than 0 means it's positive. That is, when is it possible? When both the charges either are positive or both the charges are negative. So the force between them is repulsive force. So for Q1 into Q2 greater than 0, they repel each other as shown in this figure. Q1 and Q2 separated by r distance. These two are repelling each other. F12 is the force which is acting on the first charge exerted by the second charge. Force on the first charge due to the second charge. Whereas F21 is the force which the second charge is experiencing due to the first charge. So F21 is the force exerted on the second charge due to the first. Let R12 is the unit vector whose direction is from the first to the second charge. Unit charge, unit distance. This unit vector is a vector whose magnitude is unity, which gives only the direction. Let R12 is the unit vector giving the direction from the first to the second charge. So the force on Q1 due to Q2, F12, it's written as F12. In the vector form, F12 vector can be written as 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon R square. This is the magnitude. And now only the direction of F12 has to be represented, which is the unit vector acting from second to the first charge. As you can see in the figure, R21, the direction will be along R21 unit vector. Okay, as we know that unit vector is vector divided by its magnitude. So if we write R21 vector, then it will be divided by its magnitude, so it will become RQ. So unit vector then the denominator will be r square. Vector sign, the denominator will be r cube. The same way the force on Q2 due to Q1, F21 is magnitude is the same 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon r square, and this direction is from R1 to unit vector. And same way if we write here vector, the denominator will be r cube. Okay, now we know that R12 unit vector is negative of R21 unit vector. R12 unit vector is negative of R21 unit vector. So F12 vector is minus of F21 vector. That is Coulomb's law. Coulomb's force obeys the Newton's third law. That is, both the charges are attracting or repelling each other with an equal force but in opposite directions. So the Newton's third law holds for Coulomb forces. And if the product of the two charges is less than 0, then the force between them is attractive, like as shown here, F12 and F21 both are attracting each other. From this formula we can define 1 coulomb, Q1 into Q1 and Q2 will be 1 coulomb when separated by 1 meter. And the force will be F is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon r square. Q1, Q2 are all these are unity. So the force will be 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught, which is 9 into 10 raised to the power 9 Newton. So we can define that 1 coulomb is that charge which when placed at a distance of 1 meter from equal and similar charge, it would repel with a force of 9 into 10 raised to the power 9 Newton. Now let's compare electrostatic force. Electrostatic force is the Coulomb force. Electrostatic force and the gravitational force. Last year we have studied one similar type of law, the Newton's law of gravitation, which states that any two bodies in the universe attract each other with a force which is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Okay, now let's compare these two laws. Both the forces, Coulomb's force as well as the gravitational force, both the forces are conservative. Conservative means the work done by these forces, they do not depend upon the path along which it is taken. It depends only on the initial and the final position. And the net work done in a closed loop is 0. Such forces are conservative. So here Coulomb's force as well as the gravitational force both are conservative in nature. Both these laws obey inverse square law. That is, the electrostatic force and the gravitational force both are inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Now let's see some differences between them. Electrostatic force depends upon the medium in which the charges are placed, but the gravitational force does not depend upon the medium where the masses are placed. Like here, the force when the charges are placed in air, then the force is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon r square. But if it is placed in some other dielectric medium, in an insulating medium whose dielectric constant is K, then the force becomes 1 upon 4 pi K epsilon naught Q1 into Q2 upon r square. Okay, like in case of water, the value of dielectric constant is 80. So the force will reduce by 80 times. F will be, the force will become less by 80 times. Whereas the gravitational force, it does not depend upon the medium, whether the masses are placed in air, water, vacuum, wherever it is placed, the value of the gravitational constant remains the same. Okay, the next difference is electrostatic force, that is the Coulomb force may be attractive or repulsive depending upon the nature of the charges, but the gravitational force is always attractive. It's never repulsive. The next is the electrostatic force is much stronger than the gravitational force. Between an electron and a proton, it is approximately 10 raised to the power 39 times stronger. Let's take an example. If a plastic comb is rubbed with a dry hair and brought close to the small pieces of paper, it is seen that the small pieces of paper are attracted towards it, towards the comb. The whole earth is applying the gravitational force on those bits of paper, but against the gravitational force, the papers are lifted towards the comb. So here we see that the electrostatic force is much stronger than the gravitational force. The next is superposition principle, which states that if a number of charges are placed in the space like Q1, Q2, Q3 charges, and there is another charge Q, all these charges Q1, Q2, Q3, they all are exerting force on the Q charge, and the direction of the force is along the line joining these two charges. The net force will be equal to the vector sum of all these forces. Okay, so the total force on a given charge due to the surrounding charges is the vector sum of the individual forces exerted on that given charge by all the surrounding charges. That is, F vector is equal to F1 vector plus F2 vector plus F3 vector and so on. So a number of charges placed in the space, we consider any given charge, all these charges are exerting a force on the given charge and the total force will be vector sum of it. Now let's see what is this F1 vector equal to. According to Coulomb's law, the force between Q1 and Q is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 into Q upon square of the distance between Q1 and Q. Let the position vector of Q is R vector, the position vector of Q1 is R1 vector. So this distance will be equal to R minus R1, R vector minus R1 vector. Okay, according to the triangle law of vectors, this distance will be R minus R1 vector. So the force F1 vector is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q into Q1. If we write here R vector minus R1 vector, then the denominator will be R minus R1 Q. The same way F2 is 1 upon 4 pi epsilon naught Q into Q2. This distance is R vector minus R2 vector. R minus R2 vector, if we write down, the denominator will be R minus R2Q. So in the summation, take this Q common, Q upon 4 pi epsilon naught. Summation I is equal to 1 to N. This can be written as Qi R minus Ri whole cube R vector minus Ri vector, where I varies from 1 to N. Okay, now the continuous charge distribution. Till now we have studied about the point charges. Now if the charge is uniformly distributed along the line, such a distribution is called as the linear charge distribution, and we calculate the linear charge density for it, which is given by lambda is equal to charge per unit length. In a small length dl, if dq charge is there, then lambda is given as dq upon dl and its unit will be coulomb per meter. If the charge is uniformly distributed on an area, then such a distribution is called as the surface charge distribution, and for that we calculate the surface charge density, which is given by sigma charge per unit area. In ds small area, let dq charge is there. So the surface charge density sigma is given by dq upon ds and its unit will be coulomb per meter square. Whereas if the charge is uniformly distributed in a volume, then such a distribution we call it as volume charge distribution, and we calculate volume charge density, which is given by rho charge per unit volume. If in dV volume dq charge is there, so rho is equal to dq upon dV and its unit is coulomb per meter cube. Okay, so this was the first part. Let's discuss one question over here, which had come in 2011 for 2 marks. Plot a graph showing the variation of Coulomb force F versus 1 by R square. Okay, here the graph is asked between f and 1 by r square. The graph between f and r square will be a curved line, inversely proportional. But the graph between f and 1 by r square will be a straight line. For two pair of charges, first pair is 1 microcoulomb, 2 microcoulomb, and the second pair is 2 microcoulomb and minus 3 microcoulomb. Okay, for 1 microcoulomb and 2 microcoulomb, the force will be positive. F is equal to K Q1 Q2 upon R square, as Q1 Q2 both are positive. So the force will be positive and the graph will be a straight line. Why? Because we are plotting between F and 1 by R square. So the graph is a straight line along the positive force axis. Whereas between 2 microcoulomb and minus 3 microcoulomb, the force will be negative. Okay, so along negative force axis we have plotted, it will be again a straight line. But the slope of 2 microcoulomb minus 3 microcoulomb, this slope will be greater than this one. Why? Because F is directly proportional to Q1 into Q2. 2 into minus 3, minus 6 units. Here 1 into 2, this will be 2. So the slope will be more. So this was all in the first part. The second part will come shortly.